Check. Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario on stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away, asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio. Once again with your host Nick Bernabe here on UCY.tv. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and welcome to the show. We got a lot of awesome things going on tonight and some crazy news like always, and some good news that's going on, positive stuff here and there from some unlikely sources, I guess you could say. Make sure you check us out 5 days a week. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, same time, same station. You can also watch the show live on theantimedia.org/radio. We're starting to explore this, showing the show live video. It's a little different experience for us because we're so used to being the faceless voices behind the computer screen, if that's the right way to put it. But it's definitely a different experience, but we're trying to just up our game and bring this content to you, and hopefully by providing video for those that can get access to it, we can give a little more in-depth details about the stories, show some screenshots, maybe show some video, some still photos and stuff like that. We're still working on those things. We're just trying to get the recording of it down here in the studio because we are working on a limited budget, and we are working with just, equipment that we've already got and trying to make the most of it. So you have to bear with us while we try to improve what we're doing here. It's, trial and error, and we're all kind of technically illiterate, so we're all putting our heads together trying to make this thing work. But
completely illiterate, by the way.
Yeah, in some ways we're definitely completely illiterate as well. Anyway, as you heard just now, we do have SM Gibson in the studio, our host for Tuesdays and Wednesdays for the Anti-Media Radio. How you doing, man?
Tuesday and Thursday, but I'm doing
Tuesday and Thursday,
good.
My bad. I told you I was illiterate.
Fair enough. I can't complain. A lot of good stuff on the news right now. We've also got Mr. Jake Anderson in the studio with us tonight.
Hello.
Jake, man, your article is still going viral on the 10 conspiracy theories that came true.
Yeah, dude, I think they're reading it on the moon.
Yeah, I was looking at the analytics today, and there's definitely some people on the moon reading it, and colony on Mars, and all that good stuff. It's all happening.
Yeah, it was got put on the Guardian.
Really?
Yeah.
Just in the comments section, but
right.
Yeah, I looked at the analytics. I'm like, why are we getting traffic from the Guardian right now? I don't remember them linking to us.
Well,
and then I went, and it was a comment on one of their pages people were using. To make an argument, and so that's kind of cool. People are already using your article to make arguments online, and we all know arguing on the internet is a win-win situation.
Absolutely. Good to be here, and thankful to have the Anti-Media platform to put out, information like that.
Cool, man. So first, the thing that's happening as we speak, what we're going to go into, and we do have a link to this on the Anti-Media with a link to the live streaming video. But Rand Paul, everybody's favorite, I don't know, everybody's favorite guy to disagree with and then agree with at different times. And today is one of those days where he's saying a lot of stuff on the floor of the Senate that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And SM Gibson's going to elaborate a little bit on what's going on with that.
Here's what's going on. You know, yesterday, Rand.
Oh, wait, hold on, man. I forgot to introduce our co-host, DB Schwartz. He missed the last show, but he's back tonight. He was a little under the weather on Monday, but he's back. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Nick. Just tickled by Rand Paul's filibuster. To be honest, it's hilarious. I don't know if you've been watching it.
Are you all a Twitter from him?
I mean, it's classic. Some of these bait and switch lines he's using.
Yeah.
What emoticon would you use to describe? No, I'm just joking. SM Gibson's going to go a little bit into depth on what's going on right now.
Here's my thing with what's going on today. Rand Paul may be a heel yesterday, and he may be a heel tomorrow. But I think for today, we have to give somebody credit and say, you're the hero. I can't elaborate what's going to happen tomorrow, and I'm not going to say who to vote for, this or that. I'm not telling you to like anybody. But what I am saying is for somebody to say some of the stuff that's been said on the floor of Congress today that sounds more like it's coming off of the Alex Jones program than it does off the floor of Congress when it comes to spying and what they're doing with your information. I think it's just absolutely incredible, and I do commend him for what he's doing today. You know, is there a long game? I don't know. You know, I'm not here to elaborate on that. We've got Mike Lee up there right now live, and again, y'all can watch this feed live from the antimedia.org.
Yeah, it's the second to last story that we posted there.
The story is called Watch Live as Rand Paul gives the middle finger to Big Brother. And that's kind of what he's done today. I mean, I have seen so many people in my feed and on comments saying, you know what, I hate Rand Paul, but what he's done today is admirable.
For context, he's by no means the only senator or congressman who's done this. Al Franken, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren.
Bernie Sanders actually commended him for doing.
Have all come out against Patriot Acts, and there's more than that. So Rand Paul, I think, has just licked his finger, put it in the air, and felt which way the temperature was going.
The only reason I don't know.
That's a cynical reading of it.
Right.
But
I don't know. You know. The thing with Rand that I think is such a gray area with everybody that wants liberty is because of who his dad was. And, you know, his dad, right or wrong, he didn't stand up for what he stood up for, and he never backed off of that. And Rand is, you know, flip-flopped here and there, and, you know, but he still has his dad's last name. And I think there's, you know, a huge gray area with Rand, and I don't think people know what to think about him. I think a lot of people think, oh, you know, maybe he's a shill and he's a sellout. And then there's other people that think he's the savior of the party.
But to come out against the Patriot Act is a bold move.
It's big, man.
Any way you look at it.
It's big for a Republican, for sure.
Here's the thing. I've been sitting here watching it most of the day, and I'm not able to watch Mike Lee right now, but I know Mike Lee has given Rand some crap over some of his beliefs as far as this goes. So I don't actually know what he's saying. I don't know if he's defending Rand, but I know most of the people that have gotten up there today to defend Rand Paul have been Democrats. This kind of scary thing with a lot of it is a few of the senators that get up there to quote-unquote agree with Rand are saying that, well, we've got this Freedom Act. Let's get this Freedom Act through because this is a great thing. And as Justin Amash has very clairvoyantly put, and we've talked about this last night, yeah, the Freedom Act isn't all that it's cracked up to be. And, you know, I got to give Rand credit on this one too. He's kind of giving that message today. He says it can be fixed as long as we're allowed to attach our certain amendments to this thing, and we get, you know, away from these parentheses, corporations that can still do the exact same thing as the government, and, you know, we can just insert Verizon here, AT&T here, and he said earlier, we're going to be back in the exact same spot that, you know, we're at right now. He said, we have to get away from all this mass surveillance. And his big sticking point all day, and he was talking about seizing people's assets. We talked about that earlier, Nick, and I mean, he's really gone down the line, talking about the police state a little bit. Like he's 9 hours, 8 hours in, so he's been hitting on some topics. And he sounds more like his dad today than I've heard him since he's been elected. But, we'll see what it is. We'll see what he does. But I think for today, personally, I can't speak for Jake or for Nick, but personally for today, I applaud the efforts of just bringing this to the forefront because I think it's a very important issue.
I agree with you there.
What he brought up about the codification of these basically treasonous acts, meaning that they're now going to be transparent, was really important, because if people are okay with that, if they're okay with it being on the books and it's still being done, then we really are kind of doomed for this current time.
So much of what he's been talking about today, and he keeps expressing with this new Freedom Act, he's like, they're basically just shifting these powers over. And what he keeps saying is look, if you can have mass surveillance on somebody without a warrant and without any intention of them doing anything wrong, I don't know what your definition is, but that's against the Fourth Amendment, and that's illegal. And we had a court come out in the past week or two that said that was illegal. We're discussing an issue that has been said in the courts is illegal, and I'm having to stand up here and debate this, is basically what he's saying. And,
well, it's clear that the government has said amongst themselves, we are going to transcend the law on this issue.
Yes.
And we don't give a flying frog's ass whether or not anyone calls us out on it.
And we'll tell you we're doing it.
They are getting
and they've done this on a number of issues,
Right.
Go ahead, DB.
I was just going to say, and they're going to tell you they're doing it, and they don't care anymore. When they get the troops in the streets, what are you going to do?
Right.
So, I mean, I agree with SM on commending Rand Paul on this act that he's doing today, and getting out there and shedding some light on this spying issue, among other things. It's pretty legit. And, for the people like myself who don't really support the political system, and definitely not the Republican or the Democratic parties, it's important just to look at this thing as an, advantageous time to get behind these ideas and push them out there while they're, while it's trending online because this guy's up there filibustering. We should be taking advantage of that to talk about these issues like the NSA spying.
You absolutely just nailed it. I think that's so important because whether you're for Rand Paul, whether you're against Rand Paul, anybody with a brain at this point should realize that the Patriot Act is an absolute crime against what we stand for. And when I say we, it's not us as anti-media. It should be us as all human beings is what we stand for.
Pushed through virtually overnight because of our fear of 9/11. I mean, it's the most egregious push of legislation in history.
And what's also cool is that it's a very bipartisan filibuster. And,
to a degree, because there are, like I said, the Democrats are supporting him in this, but at the same time, they're pushing the Freedom Act through as is, and that's scary.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. But, the cool thing is that you see people crossing lines, and to me, it's basically all of the civil libertarians that are in the Congress, whether we're talking about Republican or Democrat. There are several of them, and they're starting to speak out.
Wyden has been his biggest advocate today, and that's somebody that's collectively gotten together with him and Massey and Amash, and they've all kind of worked together. And Wyden is a Democrat from Oregon, and Rand Paul is a Republican from Kentucky. And we're talking a very conservative state versus a very liberal state, Republican versus Democrat, and both of them agree, no, this doesn't need to be happening. And it's the Lindsey Grahams and the John McCains and
Marco Rubio. Let's drag him into this because he put out a statement just a few days ago that was talking about basically what he was saying is that it's time to give up all your freedom so that I can make this country safe, like me. So this is the kind of guy Marco Rubio is that would definitely be supporting the NSA. He would definitely reauthorize the Patriot Act, and that's just a given. So there's two candidates that are running right now that would actually take a stand against the Patriot Act, and The one guy is filibustering now. The other guy is Bernie Sanders. And those two guys, if we weren't in a monopolized political system, they probably wouldn't even be in those two parties. They'd be in a separate party altogether. Unfortunately,
Bernie Sanders is going independent, and he is running on the Democratic Party.
But he's running as a Democrat.
He is, but he ran. He's officially an independent senator.
Yeah, he was in the Senate
He's a
for
Democratic
a long time as
socialist.
an independent. Yeah, exactly. He's a self-admitted Democratic socialist.
Which is fine. I mean, if we can stomach it, I don't know if people are all right with that. I would be okay with it. I mean, as long as enough people are on board.
I'm okay with it only
I'm on
because
board.
he's on. I don't necessarily agree with all his political views, but I'm okay with him because I feel like he's more honest than everybody.
Yeah,
because
he
he
is.
admits what he is, and I respect that.
I mean, he's a decent candidate, man.
Right.
But do I think that socialist democracy is the answer? No, because democracy is very fallible.
We're
So,
living
Nothing's
steps.
the answer because
Baby
there is no
steps.
ultimate answer.
We're living in a complete political system of nothing but lies. So when we have
I mean-
somebody that presents themselves as who they are,
Yeah.
whether I agree with it or not,
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah, at least
because
at least
they're
he's
not lying to
honest.
us. Right.
But yeah, anything would be better than this corporate oligarchy that we're stuck in right now.
Exactly.
Whether it's actual representative, like an actual republic or an actual democracy, would be better than what we have now. It's oligarchy, man, and that sucks. Now, coincidentally, the Obama administration announced earlier today that if Congress can't come to a solution on the Patriot Act by Friday, that the NSA is going to start winding down its operations, domestic operations, man.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I don't know if this is just, I don't know
But
if
they
this
already
is-
have the equipment.
What's that?
I was going to say they already have it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, they already have the
It's too
equipment.
late.
but-
It's too late, man. This
What-
is like, this is just a caveat. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably just a superficial threat, and
They-
it's
they-
basically saying this is the Obama administration saying, hey, let's pass this Patriot Act this week because it's starting to pick up too much attention and people are starting to oppose it.
So Guantanamo's closed, right? This is the same guy that said he was going to close Guantanamo, right? So we can trust him, to do the right thing.
I mean,
It wouldn't
Most
matter,
likely
man.
not.
When the infrastructure's so built out now, I mean, it's all there.
so according to this memo, it says after May 22nd, 2015, the National Security Agency, which is the NSA obviously, will need to begin taking steps to wind down the bulk telephone metadata program in anticipation of a possible sunset in order to ensure that it does not engage in any unauthorized collection or use of the metadata. So basically what he's saying is that, okay, well, if you guys let the Patriot Act expire and don't re-sign it, well, then everything that we're doing with the NSA is illegal. And this is I want to kind of get to a moral point here. And what we're talking about now is something where, like, basically what they're saying is, look, what we're doing, if it weren't for this piece of paper signed, would be completely wrong. But since there's a piece of paper saying right here that we're allowed to spy on you and stuff,
Then it's right.
then it's okay. And to me, this is just like a huge slap in the face because the fact of the matter is that it's not okay.
Let me ask you a question, okay? If I turn around right now and shoot you in the face, but there's a sheet of paper that says I'm allowed to shoot you in the face, does that make it any less wrong because somebody signed a sheet of paper? You're still dead. And that's what we're talking about.
Well, it would be okay if I said, hey, Scott, I want you to shoot me in the face, which I would never say. But if I said that
Taking
and I
advantage
signed
of
a piece
that
of
quote,
paper
everybody.
and I said, hey, dude, it's cool if you do this.
Right.
Then okay, then I would understand. That's fine. But the problem is that Congress has a 9% approval rating. The executive branch has like a 30% approval rating. Only, 20% of the voting public even participated in the voting.
Exactly.
So, in my opinion, based on those statistics, the people that are governing us aren't actually governing us by consent, except for the few people that actually voted for those politicians.
Well, that's a...
So it's not a consensual. They're not spying on us consensually. We're not saying, we're not checking a box that says I allow you to dig through my emails to make sure that there's no terrorists trying to infiltrate me. We're not saying that. We're basically saying a handful of people voted for an even less, another handful of people. And those handful of people signed a piece of paper that said that another handful of people can spy on everybody. That's not consent. That's not government by consent. I mean, this whole thing is
It's been
unconstitutional.
ruled illegal. It's been ruled
That
illegal.
too. That too. I mean, even their own courts have said it's wrong. I mean, of course, it's morally apprehensible, but even on paper, it's
Stone's
wrong.
a traitor, and he needs to be stuck in Russia. That's what we're living in. So you know what? Barack Obama can shut his mouth because this is a Nobel Peace Prize winning president that has a person that was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize held in prison right now is Chelsea Manning. So forget the hypocrisy of that lunatic, because this is a Nobel Peace Prize winning president that's saying all this rhetoric. Meanwhile, Chelsea Manning's in prison. And you have the ex-head of the CIA that does the exact same thing as him, and he gets a slap on the wrist. So I don't want to hear this high and righteous, we're going to do the right thing, just let the time expire.
Well, he was trying to get some ass.
Yeah, screw you and screw what you say, because we already know what you're about. And I don't care if you've got an R next to your name on a ballot sheet or you've got a D next to your name. You're all ridiculous dumbasses. That's what the R and the D stands for me.
So, you know, the other thing here is that, and I touched on this in an article I wrote the other day, is that this whole USA Freedom Act in the House, and keep in mind that it passed through the House with egregious provisions in it. The language in this thing is basically all it does is extend the Patriot Act, right? And it passed through the House in a bipartisan sweep. I mean, there was only a handful of people that actually voted against it in the House. One of those people was Justin Amash, and you mentioned him at the beginning of the program. But this Freedom Act is being sold as like this thing that's going to fix the Patriot Act, and it's going to quell all of our problems with the NSA and the whole data collection program and stuff.
But that makes it pretty specific. It's going to expand it.
Exactly. I mean, all of that stuff is not true. All of these headlines are coming out from the New York Times, USA Today, and all this stuff that the USA Freedom Act is going to roll back the NSA and all this stuff. None of that stuff is true, man. I mean, we're talking about expecting the government to police itself, and we all know that never happens. The only thing that happens is that the bad things they do end up going into the dark and going back under the table, you know, and they hide it better and they lie about it better, they cover it up
Let's
better.
say, for instance, tomorrow they end this entire program. Let's look at what happened with 7 MK Ultra. And there's a little bit of speculation on this, and we can't say anything definitively, but we know that there was a program in the United States from the CIA that was involved in attempting to brainwash people. We were then expected to believe that Congress shut this program down, and it never happened again. It never happened once, ever again. They never tried it. Evidence would dictate that may not necessarily be true. We can't prove that. But when has the United States government ever had a power that they turned around and just said, oh, no, we don't need this anymore? And that's what I'm afraid is happening here with the NSA. I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where they say they're not doing it. Everybody's going to know they're doing it. It used to be conspiracy theory. This is out in the open now.
Well, Clapper said they didn't do it, right?
No, you didn't hear what he said. He was mistaken. He forgot.
Oh, he just forgot.
Interesting caveat to the MK Ultra thing. This is part of that conspiracy article, but there's actually growing evidence that Theodore Kaczynski, or the Unabomber, was a subject of MK Ultra when he was at Harvard in the 50s.
There's speculation that not only was Kaczynski a part of it, but Eric Rudolph was a part of it. There's also speculation that McVeigh was a part of it, given his association with Jolyon West, who came up a little bit with Tim Leary, and that's a whole different thing. You know, I don't want to get into all that.
Yeah.
But there's connections with a lot of this stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to sit here and say I know this for a fact.
I couldn't resist throwing that in.
Right, and I think that's a good point. And this is something that everybody needs to remember, is with a lot of these things, I can't sit here and tell you that this is a fact or this is what happened. There's a lot of pages and shows that want to say, I know this happened because of this correlation. I can tell you the correlation is true. I can't tell you that it exactly means what it supposedly means. But the mainstream media doesn't want you to know these correlations at all, and they just want you to think everything's crazy. So that's why everybody needs to make decisions for themselves.
So I want to bring this back now to to the USA Freedom Act because I think we have a guest on the line that we're going to move on to the next story here once I get through this. But I just want to go into a little detail about what's going on with this USA Freedom Act, and this is from Jay Sirmopoulos over at the Free Thought Project, and I quote from the article here. What no one wants to say out loud is that this is a big win for the NSA and a huge nothing. A huge nothing burger for the privacy community, said a former senior intelligence officer while speaking to the Daily Beast. This bill doesn't actually end or suspend the phone records program, but simply requires phone companies to hold onto these records rather than the NSA. Additionally, under this bill, the NSA will now get cell records in addition to the landline call records. Under the current collection regime, only landline call records are kept. The NSA is out. Sorry, I can't read tonight. The NSA is coming out of this unscathed. Joel Brenner at the NSA, former Inspector General, told the Daily Beast. I think no one thought it was in the realm of the possible before this bill. The irony is that this is exactly what former NSA Director General Keith Alexander wanted to implement previously, but the idea was shelved due to the extreme unlikeliness of Congress being willing to pass such legislation. The USA Freedom Act, the supposed reining in of the NSA, was literally born from Alexander, the former official said. So what we're talking about with this Freedom Act, and as Jay basically said in this article, is that it's pretty much what Obamacare was. It's something that's supposed to rein in the NSA that has been designed by the NSA.
Right.
Okay, and it's like saying that we're going to punish the insurance companies by passing laws that are written by the insurance companies. Right. So basically what we have here is a conflict of interest. Many people call this type of phenomena regulatory capture. But basically what it is that it's these guys policing themselves. And once again, I mean, and it's so funny because it's ironic that they're calling this thing the USA Freedom Act because the Patriot Act was so unpatriotic, and it was passed.
It was to find the Patriots.
This bill is going to help us out and save us and all this stuff. And now we got this Freedom Act, and basically it's what it's doing is it's shifting the responsibility for spying a little bit away from the NSA to deflect blame. But what it's doing is it's shifting it over to the private sector. So there's going to be more and more of these big companies that are going to be holding on to this data.
A lot more biker
gang. Whenever the NSA wants it, it's going to be right there at their access.
Deflection. And short little thing, real quick. Other day I was on the phone talking to my father, and I was, explaining this to him, and I just said, so there's this thing called the Freedom Act, and he stopped me right there and goes, oh, if it's called the Freedom Act, that means they're taking a lot of freedoms away from you. Because that's what they do now. They give something, a name like I'm a patriot, so let's pass this, and it's the exact opposite.
Exactly, man. Exactly, and it's Orwellian. It's doublespeak.
It is.
The Biker Gang Protection Act of Texas to take away guns.
All right. I think we're joined now by Claire Bernish, one of our new journalists at the Anti-Media. She has an amazing story up, and she's been doing a lot of awesome articles for us. Claire, is that you? How you doing?
Yes, it's me. Hi. I'm good. How are you?
Oh, we're doing pretty good. Having some fun here. Talking about the Patriot Act and the USA Freedom Act, which is anything but free. So we're going to move on from that. Hopefully everyone can take the time out of their day tomorrow to look into this Freedom Act because it is very Orwellian, and the Patriot Act is set to expire really soon. So there's going to be some action on this. But keep I don't know. Just keep your finger on the pulse of this Patriot Act thing, and we don't know what's going to happen. We know that Rand Paul is still up there.
No, it's Ted Cruz now.
Oh, oh God!
It's creepy, man.
It's all going downhill at this point.
All right. So Claire, first of all, we have this article up on the Anti-Media. It's our third to the last story that we've posted today. About how the music industry, the mainstream music industry, pop culture, whatever you want to call it, is literally putting out content that is at an average of a third grade level.
Yes, second to third grade now.
Yeah, and so you wrote a story on this, and you kind of went into some context here about the ramifications and maybe why is it happening? What do you think?
Well, I really think that there is a push for anti-intellectualism these days. The music survey the study they did is really just symptomatic of the problem as a whole. I mean, if you just look at how vapid everything is, there's a push towards self-righteous materialism, and there's nothing intellectual in education anymore at all, like in college or in grade school. I don't know. It's the whole, everything has shifted. The curriculum has shifted. The way we learn has shifted. Everybody's learning for the test instead of actually learning for knowledge and trying to think critically. It's gone out the window.
So the meme that we posted up tonight was kind of indicative of this article. It was comparing Justin Bieber lyrics to Tupac lyrics, which we all know Tupac is supposedly dead. But I mean, I think everyone that's probably listening tonight, unless they're extremely young, has probably noticed this trend, where music used to be pretty decent, at least dating back to the 90s and even some of the stuff in the early 2000s. But as of late, I mean, it's really perpetuated this nonsense and this just horribly shallow and, I mean, misogynistic and materialistic and all these different horrible things that we should really be trying to get away from as a culture. But the music nowadays is really pushing that stuff out there. And there's been so many rumors, and there was even an article written recently by Kanye West, and I've mentioned this a few times, but in this article, it was kind of like a lighthearted article where he was saying that he's not part of the Illuminati, et cetera, and, it was kind of funny. But later on in the article, he actually admitted, like, yeah, I have to conform my lyrics to what, the people that I work for are allowing me to put out there. And so I think that the deeper thing that we can start looking at here with this new study, and it was done by Seat Smart, apparently, and what we can start, deduct from this, I think, is that it's a very corporate-driven agenda to dumb down the people and to make them into, to kind of mold them into whatever it is that these corporations that are controlling the music industry are trying to mold them into, which to me, it looks like they're just trying to mold people into very loyal consumers, right?
Exactly. That was my thought. I think that they want obedient consumers who will do, whatever the government wants them to do, basically. And just getting everybody to be dumbed down is malleable and stuck in the system and working like slaves for the system. Then, they look at the music as if it's some sort of escape and, what's the harm in that? But really, when you're being fed lyrics like this over and over and over again, and the way the marketing with the radio works, 80% of stations have identical playlists. You're going to be getting the same thing over and over and over again pounded into your head, and if it doesn't have anything stimulating behind it, then you're not thinking at all. It's actually dangerous to have that repeated. I mean, how are you going to learn to think critically and be a contributing member and innovate or come up with anything new? I mean, all you're really going to be is a slave.
And people should listen to some of these pop songs backwards. I'm not kidding you.
Claire, this is SM, and before I make my statement here, I just want to say it's an absolute pleasure having you a part of the team now. I think you're an absolute brilliant writer, and I hope more people check out your articles, and I know there's more great stuff to come from you.
Oh, thank you.
But I am definitely a music snob. I played music for quite a few years. And
you like Air Supply, right? That's your band. That's your thing,
of course, yes. I mean,
Nelson
on my list, and Styx. But
at least it's not Nickelback. I mean, you're cool there.
Well, they're great.
Or Winger.
Hey. But okay, so we're talking about a culture that in the 1960s we had somebody that was putting out records like Leonard Cohen and Bob Dylan. And now we're putting out Taylor Swift and Blake Shelton. Like, these are supposedly the equivalents of those people. Now, one of two things has happened. There's been a systematic change in society where all people are complete morons now. Or there is something going on inside of the machine that suggests we don't want to let any intellectual thing filter through to pop culture because we want to keep people stupid.
Fluoride is a hell of a drug.
Yeah. I don't know which it is, but I know that there's no records coming out like Leonard Cohen anymore.
No, there's not.
Well, for one thing, I mean, the artists are all marketed. I mean, they're a marketing tool. They're really just a vehicle for all these corporations to make money. They're not really, they don't really necessarily have any musical talent whatsoever. And the way that, you know, they might come with their own
ideas. The
ideas.
Beatles were. I think they were a marketing tool, but at the same time, there was an artistic merit behind what they did.
I think it's interesting that in the same breath, in the same article, that Kanye was like, "I'm not a part of the Illuminati." But my
you dated Madonna.
is controlled by a globalist anarchy that controls the world. You know, it's
I'm
just like,
completely
yeah.
controlled, but it's not by the people you
Look,
say.
it's not actually called the Illuminati. It's like the same thing. It's just not called that. It's
Yeah,
just
just
like a
don't call
bunch
it
of
the Illuminati.
extremely large corporations that have an extreme amount of money, that use the media, that use the entertainment industry to influence people to fall into an agenda. And that agenda, as Claire perfectly summed up in what she just said, is that it's to be loyal consumers and to be, you know, servant to the government, not question things. And any pop culture figure that actually does step out of line and actually speaks out, we remember the controversy caused by even LeBron James coming out with a Black Lives Matter shirt on. I mean, anybody that in pop culture that comes out and steps up, they immediately get hammered in, and if they don't get hammered down, well, then they get put into exile.
That's Russell Brand right now. That's like he's the embodiment of everything you're talking about. And that doesn't mean Russell Brand's perfect or blah, blah, blah. That's the thing. You know, people can have great ideas and doesn't mean you have to fall into the world, but for the same time to sit here and say this guy comes out against Monsanto and comes out against the banks, and all of a sudden the next thing you're saying, oh, he's being hired by the Rothschilds because somebody he dated 2 years ago, is absolutely insane.
50 Cent loves GMOs, dude. Come on.
GMOs are tasty.
I like that corn that rots your teeth away.
Man,
apparently, yeah,
it's good for you.
So, I mean, your article actually touches on it, Claire, about the fact that the media is controlled by 90%, and that we are getting this agenda-driven, you know, pop culture and all this. But what I do see as a shining light, and we hear about it all the time, oh, the record industries are dead, the blah, 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 the internet is like undercutting the industry and all that stuff. And to me, I look at that and I'm like, I'm not saying, oh, poor Kanye and poor Justin Bieber, they're not good. They're only going to have 9 million instead of, you know, 20.
I'd feel bad for them, but you know what? Nobody should be paid for their music because it's all crap. So you should steal it, because if you want to listen to it, if you're stealing it, you paid what it was worth.
You know, I don't want to put any weird ideas out there.
Exactly.
Man, if you really wanted to make a message as a terrorist, you know, hey, maybe, I don't know, kidnapping Bieber? I don't know. I don't want to put negative energy out there, but think of the statement that would be making.
So,
sorry, go ahead, Nick.
So basically, I mean, I think that there are some positive signs. We've covered it on the anti-media. We've covered 2 of the songs by Killer Mike and Run the Jewels about the positive impact that's going on in the independent music scene. And the internet is really helping to fuel this decentralized, this decentralized music movement, where if there's somebody that's got talent and they've got a band or they've got beats and they've got lyrics and they make a decent video, they can go viral on YouTube or they can go viral on SoundCloud. And
that's how Justin Bieber got discovered too.
Yeah, and so of course there are the downsides. That's how you end up with a guy like Justin Bieber. But looking back, Justin Bieber was actually pretty legit when he was still on YouTube. He was, I mean, yeah, his music might have still sucked, but at least he was an okay kid. But then they brought him into this.
He was the worst. Don't listen to me.
It just goes to show how much the machine will corrupt somebody. I mean, as soon as he becomes part of this Hollywood machine, all of a sudden he's blowing lines and he's drag racing in Lamborghinis and all that nonsense that he's doing.
It reminds me of the end of Sin of a Woman with Al Pacino, and saying,
Hoo-ah!
Yeah, and saying, you know what? Charlie's soul is intact. What's obvious, Justin's soul was not intact, and he was pretty quick to sell out. So, yeah, screw that kid.
So I wanted to ask you, Claire, about what you see as far as breaking away from this monopoly that we're pretty much a lot of people are stuck in. I know, like, most young people get almost all of their music from the internet now. I mean, I don't know hardly anyone that still buys like CDs and stuff. Everybody uses iTunes.
I still buy
or
vinyls from time to time.
vinyl. Yeah, I know people that collect vinyls and stuff, and there are people that collect CDs, but they're not out there like buying CDs and stuff. Most people download their music from the internet. And do you think that there is hope as far as breaking through this monopoly? Can this independent music movement break through into majorly influencing pop culture or mainstream culture? What do you think?
Well, I mean, there is a chance for sure because, YouTube and independent, I mean, there are a lot of ways to get a hold of music that is not this kind of garbage. I mean, that's a given, but it's not reaching enough people like it should be. The message, all of the artists with the good message, their work just isn't getting out. It's not getting seen by all the people. There are millions and millions of people who listen to this stuff because of the monopoly on the radio stations. I mean, I wanted to bring this up for an example. Somebody in the commenting said, why write an article about idiots if you're not going to write it on their level? And it's like, well, that's the point of anti-intellectualism. If somebody doesn't understand the article, they should take the effort to go and look up the words if they don't get it. I mean, that's more of a symptom of the problem. It's like this laziness and inability to just kind of, engage with people and topics and, ideas. And the artists that do have good ideas need to be promoted more. One of the articles that I read in researching this, somebody had suggested maybe boycotting, mainstream media in all forms. And if we could get a movement together enough and get the message across that nobody's going to take this anymore, then perhaps we could get the right artists, heard on the radio.
Yeah, I think that it's tough to boycott until you have like a really, really viable alternative, right? And that's something that I think needs to be worked on.
I think in art, though, there always is a viable alternative.
Well, I mean,
underground is.
What we need is basically Pandora or Spotify that is like strictly for like independent music and is like something that's designed extremely well, that's extremely entertaining. You know what I mean? An alternative like that, I think, would really propel the movement forward.
The musicians aren't making any money off of these new systems. The lead guy of Pinback, which is a very well-established band, he says he's made like a few $1,000s off of all his music being on Spotify, and this is a guy that gets millions and millions and millions of hits. These artists aren't making anything.
Right.
Well, no, they don't have huge corporations behind them using them as marketing tools. So
right.
Exactly.
If they're making money, if they're making money, they're probably making it through advertising or Taylor Swift kind of stuff, man. There's no small people making money anymore.
I hate to bring his name back up, but maybe this will solve the problem. The Russell Brand joke saying, all my favorite musicians did a whole bunch of drugs and did heroin. So, maybe if all these musicians started doing heroin, and since it is a strong drug, it would weed out a lot of the weaker ones.
I think they need to do mushrooms, man. Then they'd probably.
Keith Richards is still around.
If they did some mushrooms, they'd probably refuse to work for the man after that. But yeah, I mean, this is a huge topic, and I know that all forms of media are relatively monopolized. This show was syndicated on a local terrestrial FM station. AM station here in San Diego, and we were syndicated for all 3 weeks. And after about 3 weeks, they pulled our show off. I mean, and they never gave us an explanation or anything. But it's like, we're not going to syndicate your show anymore. Okay. Well, I understand because they got a really monopolized type of message.
You had a bit too much to think.
Yeah, exactly. I had a little too much to think, and it was kicking up dust, and it also was broadcast over top of one of the biggest military bases in the country. So that probably didn't help my case any, but. It really did show me and firsthand. I mean, I've dealt with being blackballed by the media before. I was at the very first march against Monsanto. I spoke out against the mainstream media because of the fact that they suppress activism and activist causes and stuff like that. And I literally got the report. A few of the mainstream reporters were there, and the guy came up to me and the reporter confronted me, and he's like, "Man, this is not how you conduct, how you conduct things. This, we came out here to do you a favor and all this stuff." I'm like, "Dude, I thought you came out here to cover the news." You know what I mean? But anyways, and then 30 minutes later, I get a call from the guy's producer, and this guy is literally going off on me to the point of like almost cussing me out. But the funny thing is that I never even said anything negative about the mainstream media. I allowed the audience, by a show of hands, to show how corrupt the media was and how biased it was.
Nice.
And they really didn't like that. So these guys really have a tight agenda that they allow to go through the traditional avenues. And I think that one thing that you were talking about as far as boycotting them is a great idea. Boycotting the corporate media. I mean, I still every now and then I'll see CNN when I'm at a restaurant or something, and it's like, oh my, I can't believe people are watching this shit.
They're all over airports, man. And you go to an airport and get to a bar and listen to these idiots get drunk and talk about what's on mainstream. And I look over them and I'm like, dude, I don't want to talk about this.
CNN is a beer better than Fox News, but CNN, you got to cut it out.
But they have TVs everywhere now too.
MSNBC is like a gin and tonic better, but
I think CNN's more dangerous than Fox News because it pulls in. It kind of it leads to people to believe that it's unbiased. Everyone knows Fox News is conservative.
Fox and MSNBC's biased. CNN supposedly is reporting.
If you want to hear
that's why CNN is more dangerous.
If you want to hear about 20 hours of plane crash footage and then 2 hours of corporate-backed politicians, watch CNN.
We've got 2 articles actually on the anti-media. It's happened 2 separate times where protesters, when they've been out at some of these protests. Of course, it's mostly during when there's like right after a riot, and some of the protesters are on tape on live CNN saying "F CNN."
Seriously.
And that's pretty funny. I covered it twice.
My friend did that in Ferguson. I was in Ferguson, and he ran up to the CNN. I think it was Don Lemon was broadcasting, and he ran up and did that on live TV.
I think that's one of the ones that we covered. Yeah.
they'll do 3 days of plane crash footage while people are starving to death and getting bombed by drones. Like that's unethical. That's unethical, and any way you look at it, you cannot support that with a good conscience.
No way.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess there's just so many different things. We try to support independent musicians as much as we can, and our intro outro music is independent musicians. But what we're trying to do is actually get like a break in the middle of the show, play a new song every night. But it's important. I guess I can't stress enough how important it is, because after seeing this article today and looking at this study and just seeing this crap that we're being fed, it just goes to show how much we need to reform the way we music and start to turn away from all this crap, this pop culture stuff. I literally don't have a friend in my personal life that actually listens to this crap. I mean, the most mainstream stuff that people will listen to is like Kendrick Lamar of my friends. So I mean, I don't know how much influence that these Justin Bieber still has on the world. But it still is significant. Yeah, it's still significant, but there are signs that there's like a divergent music movement that is slowly but surely gaining a lot of ground on this monopoly that we have, over the radio and that we see on MTV and VH1. I mean, they don't even show music videos on MTV anymore.
They don't show music videos.
It's a ray of hope.
They show Snooki walking around drunk.
Exactly. Claire, you had another article that we recently covered as far as what the Human Rights Council is saying about the state of the policing in this country. And this was your first article for us, and it did really well. But it was kind of stark because it really put into perspective how little how little we know about what's actually going on with our country, because it's kind of funny to see 117 countries that from all over the world sit there and say, hey, you guys are messing up with your policing. Meanwhile, at the same time, you see like 40, 50, maybe even 60% of the people in our country that are living right next to where this stuff is happening, that not even seeing a problem with it. You know what I mean? And that also, I think, leads to is kind of perpetuated by this media monopoly and stuff like that.
It is, absolutely. But I wanted to bring something up about that article, too, because people were saying that a lot of those countries had human rights abuses of their own. But, that might be true, but doesn't that speak even more to our problem if that's what they're saying about us? If they already have human rights problems and they're saying that we abuse our own citizens, then, that's clearly a problem.
I'll say this, though, Claire. I think a lot of people that are in these situations don't realize how bad it is. I think that China or Russia looks at us and says, wow, what are they doing? And we look at them and say, wow, what are we doing? And, it's the old metaphor, but it's the frog in the frying pan, and you don't realize that, the water's getting hotter.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. And that's the thing.
Right.
We sit here and people that watch, let's just say CNN, they're not going to see these horrible things being done by our government, but they're going to see everything that's been done by Russia. People in Russia are going to sit there and they're going to see nothing that's being done by their own government, and they're going to see everything that's being done by the U.S. government.
But that outside perspective is really valuable. That is somebody looking from the outside, regardless of their own problems. That's somebody looking from the outside and seeing that we are clearly doing something wrong. So I think there's value in that.
Personal level, as much as they do it on a global level. I'm real quick to look at somebody else and point out their problems, but for me, I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. I think you're onto something here with this how these other countries are seeing it, and it kind of, I think, deals a blow to the American exceptionalism ego that we have going on, this nationalism, patriotism, whatever you want to call it, because it shows that other countries are starting to see us for our flaws that we are. And of course, all the countries that we've invaded or conducted coups or installed a military junta, most of those people already know the horrible things that we do. But the people in Japan, people in South Korea, people in Germany, and countries that we've been occupying for decades, their media is as much controlled as our media, and since they're in bed with our government, they make sure that their media is not making sure their media is not criticizing U.S. foreign policy. But we're starting to see cracks in that too, and this is a story that's went relatively unheard, and I'm sad that I missed it sooner, because this happened like 3 or 4 days ago. But there was something like 30,000 protesters in Japan standing up against a new American military base that was being built, and they were protesting against it. 30,000 people. Did we hear about this? No. Even us, we didn't even hear about it. This is stuff that's going on all over the country. The cracks in the propaganda are happening whether in Japan, Korea, Germany, or here in the US. There's more and more people, it seems like Ferguson is a perfect case. March Against Monsanto is a perfect case. What's going on in Baltimore is a perfect example. More and more people, I think, are starting to see through the cracks in this propaganda and see the flaws in this system. And, more and more people are coming and listening to shows like ours and reading websites like the Anti-Media and checking out websites like the Free Thought Project and all these other independent sites that are out there driving these messages home that, hey, we're being fed If we're being fed fluff at best and lies at worst.
They are, but here's something you missed. Okay, so we're talking about Ferguson and Baltimore versus March Against Monsanto and a march in Japan over a military base. Okay, the core media, and they proved it during both of those scenarios, they will show you aspects of Baltimore and Ferguson because they can do that in an effort to promote division among people, and they can use those as opportunities to keep people divided. When you've got something like March Against Monsanto, or you've got people just saying, hey, we don't need this military base here, you're showing an actual sense of unity among a group of people that live together and say, we're on the same page with this, and there's no division involved, and people from different spectrums are coming together to fix this. That will never be reported in the corporate media because that's what they don't want you to see. They don't want you to see when there can be unity among different,
all kinds of people.
No,
exactly.
That's their worst nightmare.
Right, exactly. So they're going to show you Ferguson. They're going to show you Baltimore.
But they're only going to show you the part that they can use to polarize people. They're not going to show the massive 30,000 people marching in Baltimore that the following weekend, which was one of the biggest police accountability marches in history. That wasn't shown.
We can't show
We've
Because
reported
that
on
shows
it.
you.
We had someone on the ground, and we got a great story out of it. And it was a really enlightening, positive story, and it was unity among everything else. It was unity, and that stuff just won't be shown on
And that's
TV.
not just about ratings, because the media is about ratings, but you know what? They could still show that and people would pay attention to it. That is about not disclosing the truth.
It's
to the
agenda,
American
man.
people.
It's the
But you know what
bias.
you know what I noticed though that I thought was really interesting and actually a really good sign is that independent media has started to call out mainstream media about not covering the 95% of Baltimore that was totally peaceful. And when they started to do that, mainstream media started to shift as well. Like I noticed mainstream media starting to cover the peaceful side of the protest and start to backtrack and say, well, no, maybe the whole town wasn't in a riot. I thought that was a good sign.
I mean, Morgan Freeman came out and he literally said, and I can't say the whole word, but he said, F the media. He said, because their coverage in Baltimore was horrible.
Right.
And this is a guy that's Hollywood royalty, you know what I mean? So,
Exactly.
I mean, it just goes on, and I think we are making positive progress. And then we got another story today that's at least semi-positive. Claire, you're welcome to continue with us. We only have about 4 more minutes. But this story we posted on the Anti-Media came from Truth in Media, which is Ben Swan's news outlet, which is pretty awesome, by the way. And basically what happened is that these 5 banks got caught fixing currency markets. And it's Citigroup, JP Morgan, Barclays, Royal Bank of Scotland. All of these guys got nailed for in this scheme. And now they got to pay a bunch of money, 5.7 billion, 5.8 billion. I've seen different numbers thrown out there. 5.7 is the most reliable number, but they've got to, pay the United States federal government 5.7 billion.
Here's something people need to know real quick about the story. It does seem like these banks were punished, but they were not, because these same exact banks trade $5 billion a day.
Right.
A day, and they were charged $5.7 billion.
It's a slap on the wrist.
It's a slap on the wrist at best. It's a big show,
And
they
no one's
weren't
being,
really punished.
and no individual people are going to be prosecuted
Exactly.
or anything.
There was no
course not.
prosecution. There was no criminal charges, and they trade $5 billion a day, and they have to pay out a fine of $5.7 billion between them all. That's enough.
It's business
Yeah,
as
who knows
usual.
how much they made,
That's
man?
chump change for them.
Trillions, who knows? And the other thing, is that these are the same guys that are like, we're talking about JP Morgan here. These are deeply in bed with the government, and anything that's going on with them, it's going to be a compromise at best, if not a slap on the wrist or a PR stunt to say, hey, look, we're holding these guys accountable. You can trust the government again, and this is exactly what this is, because 5.7 billion, when it comes down to the grand scheme of the U.S. government, that's basically nothing.
Well, considering that these companies are responsible for eviscerating the middle class and causing an economic recession, that put millions and millions of people out of work, I mean, there's got to be accountability there.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. The only people that were harmed by this rigging the market was the general public, right?
Right.
And the people that were in these markets trading independently, etc. But who's going to get this $5.7 billion payday? The U.S. federal government,
Right.
dude. And what are they going to do with it? I mean,
Go to
for all
war.
we know, they're going to turn that money into Hellfire missiles and drones. You know what I mean? So, I mean, the people that were fallen victim to this scandal are not getting any kind of accountability or any kind of justice. And the people that were actually responsible, because according to some of these documents, or according to the statements made by the DOJ, is that there was individuals sending messages back and forth telling each other what they're doing. Why aren't these individuals going to jail like the guy that was running the Ponzi scheme that ripped off all the rich people?
Madoff, the 5.7 billion could easily just be used by the government to bail out the banks that paid them the 5.7 billion. I mean, is that too far off the radar?
There's an epic of lack of accountability with government and everything else. I mean, police, government, banks, nobody has any accountability for anything they do wrong anymore.
Exactly, except for the average citizen.
Right.
Everybody else, if I get caught
Exactly.
drunk or whatever, I'm gonna be screwed. But you get caught ripping people off for, who knows, $500 billion? I don't know. Then, well, we're gonna slap you with a $5 billion penalty, and none of your people are gonna go to jail. You know what I mean? It's just insane. And you wrote a story about was it B of A? Bank of
Right,
America,
yeah,
or
B of A.
and how they were ripping people off. Nobody was really held accountable fully, and it's a repetitive theme that we're seeing in all branches of the government.
Yeah,
And
B of
then
A.
these corporations like Monsanto and all these other corporations basically get away with the same kind of shit over and over. It's time that we hold them all accountable. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thanks for all the calls. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. 5 days a week, same place, same time. Peace.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.